Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Influencers Project. I'm your host, Craig Reynolds, and with me today is one of the most prolific BMX racers of all time. He's a multi-time national champion, multi-time world champion, was inducted into the BMX Hall of Fame in 2005, and is a serial entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Greg Hill. Greg, how's it going today?
Good, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm hanging in there, right? We're doing the best we can right now, and I'm glad to have you on. It's always a special treat to have one of the most iconic riders in our sport, in the sport of BMX, pay me a visit. This is awesome.
I appreciate it, man. It seems like another lifetime, but yeah, it's definitely cool.
Yeah, you know what? I feel the same way. Like, some people ask me about BMX racing occasionally, and I'm like, man, that was a long time ago. I mean, I retired in 2004 and pretty much just checked out of it for a few years because I needed a break.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's a different animal now, and I don't even. It's different. It's totally different.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what's happening, who's winning. I don't follow it. I just had to basically move past it. And not that I hate it. Some people are like, "Oh, he hates BMX." I don't hate BMX. I don't want to talk about it all day long. You know?
Right. Well, we're not going to do that here, right? I wanted to tee up who you are and what you did. We'll touch on it a bit, but there's a lot of things.
In the right context, it's cool. You know what I mean?
Sure. But, we're not going to talk about the politics of it all. I don't have time for it. We're not going to solve it. I mean, it doesn't matter. You started racing. Well, you turned pro at a pretty young age, right? You and Eric Roop pretty much turned at a really, really young age.
Yeah. Well, I turned when I was 14, and Eric was also 14, but Eric I think he's about 4 months older than me. So I turned probably in May. I want to say 70. I mean, my dates might be messed up, 79, 78-ish, something like that. And then he turned, and then we were both, like, within 6 months, we were both racing pro, and it was crazy because you could race pro, and then we were racing 14 expert, you know? So you're lining up to race these grown men with beards and stuff. And and then you're going back and racing your amateur class. It was quite weird, and they did that for like probably 2 or 3 years. So
that was in the early years of the sport too. So the sport was still growing. So I'm sure there was all kinds of learning curves and growing pains that they had to go through.
Yeah, for sure.
And
definitely.
You had a solid amateur career as well, because you were national title in 14, 15, like 16X as well, right?
Yeah. When I started, like, I was 10, and the first several months was kind of, hit the ground every time. I don't know, maybe that's the same for a lot of people, but no patience, go for the pass, crash, repeat that over and over and over. And then finally, this is really crazy, because first time I ever got a trophy was like, I got second place behind a girl, which is my wife, and at the time. So even my first trophy was like, crap, this sucks, man. I really want to be excited about this. How am I going to be 10 years old and be excited about beaten by a girl, So anyway, past that, then 11, 12, 13, 14, won a lot of races and stuff. And then when I was 14, right when I turned pro, I was talking to my dad, and I said, I'm like running over to watch the pros. I want to race these guys. I don't want to do this anymore the way we're doing it. I'm over it. It's been 4 years of nonstop nationals, and been winning a lot of races. And it's just, quite frankly, I told my dad I'd rather get and be a pro and not make the main than win my class anymore. I'm sick of this. So he goes, why don't we just talk to Ernie? And Ernie says, hey, if the guys sign you in and they approve it, you need to get at least 3 guys or something, then we can do it. So we did it, and it was cool.
Who were the 3 guys that signed it?
I think like Dennis Dane, Stu. I can't remember who else. I don't think they needed that many approvals, And then it was like the first race I went to was in Simi Valley, and it was just like some pro open, no big deal, like a local,
Sure.
And I was in 4th place, and about halfway down the track, David Clinton was in 3rd place, and it was like he got a rear flat, moved to the right, and I just moved into 3rd, and I won $50. And I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. So that's kind of it, man. That's where it really got going.
And that's when it took off. And from there, it's well documented about how many titles you had, and the sponsors you rode for, and GT, and Redline and Shimano and Mongoose and these massive companies that you got to represent at the time.
Yeah.
When did that kick off for you and become, man, this is my career?
I think when there's a couple of light bulbs happened where when I was 13, Scott Breithaupt called my dad and said, "Hey, we'd like Greg to join the team." Well, the team was Perry Kramer, Jeff Utterback, and Stu Thompson. And you like,
so those of you that don't know, SE Enterprises or Scott Enterprises, SE Bikes was one of the premier brands back in the day. Scott Breithaupt was like one of the best promoters of BMX that arguably started the whole sport and really helped it grow. And the names that Greg just mentioned are some of the most historic names in the sport as well. So you being in that same category, jumping onto that team, that had to be pretty surreal.
I was at the NBA Grand Nationals in Costa Mesa when Scott Breithaupt won the title. I think that was in 70. Wow. It's tough. I think it might have been 76.
The only person that can keep track of dates is Todd Lyons. I'm telling you. Todd and Dale. Those are the two dudes that got the dates.
Johnny Johnson's like the full historian.
Yes.
But when I was sitting by the fence and I was watching, and Breithaupt just won from start to finish, and he beat all these. He beat Kevin McNeil and Stu Thompson and Perry Kramer and all these guys. And so then getting on the team and having those guys, it was like, this is a great experience. And then the other thing was, it's weird, but when I wanted to start racing, I was friends with the guy that I went to school with, and his name was Tim Gallego. His mother's boyfriend was a guy named Chuck Robinson, and he was the team manager for DG at the time. And so Tim and I would ride every single day, and he's like, "Why don't you come to the races, man?" So I went. My parents, I got back, told them how much I loved it. They were like, I don't know what the circumstances were. They didn't have the time to take me for whatever. So my older sister, Tanya, who's, I want to say she's 6 or 7 years older than I am, roughly. Anyway, she's like, "I'll take him." Because I was in like every single day at school was a fight, I have like this ADD deal I grew up with. Somebody would push you, or somebody would call you a name, and then it would be, I didn't have the greatest influence growing up on how to like use words to get out of conflict or out of situations. My dad and my uncle, his brother, they was just basically, pound on people and then talk later, which is not good. Which led to me going to 3 different elementary schools, getting kicked out, fighting every day. And it's like, so my sister says, "I'll take him to the track." So she took me, and thank goodness she wound up talking to Stu, and now she wants to go to the track like 12 days a week, so I get to go racing all the time, which was great. That was pretty cool. So, and then my mom and dad started going, but it wasn't good enough for them to sit in the stands. It's like within a month, my dad was partners with the track guy. My mom was scoring races. So it was like, oh, okay, you couldn't make it, but now you're running the races. So it's cool.
That's pretty incredible.
That was it. So the whole thing where in 74, when I started in Stu, you had your Orange County, and then you had your LA, which LA would be like Yarnell, and I don't know, there's a lot of tracks, but the thing was LA was where NBA was. So you had Stu in Orange County and a few guys like McNeil, but the guys that were BMX that were the best were, 50 miles north, David Clinton, John George. I'm not saying they were better than Stu or any of these guys, but it was just, they were way more, the guys in Orange County wanted to beat the guys in LA way more than, vice versa. So,
right.
So watching all that kind of transpire, and then the biggest issue was my sister's dating Stu, and he's over at the house all the time, and finally I'm just like, screw this dude, man. Like, I don't want to sit around and talk about he's winning all these races, man. I'm over it, dude. I'll run this guy into a freaking tree because I'm tired of hearing about it. You're at Christmas and you're just talking about how he just won this and won that, and I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. And it kind of started that way. So I mean, it's unfortunate we don't talk today and, family politics takes place, but, I can never deny the fact that growing up, he was the reason that he was the shovel of fuel that got thrown into my fire, because I was just like, one day we're going to sit at this table, we're going to talk about how I kicked your ass and how I won, not how you won. And so that was as dumb as that sounds, that was kind of my motivation.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of influences there from growing up and BMX being an outlet for you to stay out of trouble, so to
Yeah.
speak, right?
Right.
Your sister wanting to help you and support you in that. Luckily, she met Stu Thompson, again, one of the greatest BMXers of all
Yeah,
time.
for sure.
And you having his influence to drive you to be better. Like,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. Like, when you really get down to it, I mean, you've got one of the best dudes in the sport sitting at your table, and obviously, I can see how that'd be annoying talking
Yeah, for
about
sure.
his accomplishments. But man,
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was something that you don't realize when it was happening. It's more like when you get older and you reflect on it. Just like anything in life, I think when you're younger, you get some things happening that might be great, but you don't realize it until later. They're laying the foundation for something you have no idea about.
Right,
But
man. No matter how frustrating it is, it's like,
yeah,
wow,
for
that was
sure.
pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
In the early days, there wasn't, and there isn't now, but there's no handbook on how to get sponsored, how to make money. I think the super defining moment at 14 and a half, after being pro for about 6 months, excuse me, I was in the street. Stu's truck was out there. He was working on his bike, and we were talking, and I said, "Hey, how do you go about getting sponsors? Like, how does all this stuff work?" And his reply was, "I don't really know. I have no idea. And I don't really know what to tell you." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense to me. Let me think here. This is like the best guy in the sport, and he doesn't know how to get sponsored." So it pissed me off. It was like, I'm all about, look, I was at a race at the end of my career, and I took a guy at the finish line and grabbed him and said, "You need to roll with me, dude, or I'm going to punch you right in your head." And his name was John Purse. And we went out behind Ralph's Bicycles trailer. And I said, "Dude, what is your problem, bro?" I'm like, "You're a younger version of me. You're fighting every race. You could be so much better." Like, I wanted to help him, even though we were on the gate together. And it's like, when I look back, and Stu had an opportunity to, he didn't have to tell me everything, just give me something. And he just completely blew me off. And I really believe that was the best thing he could have done. Because at that point, if he was on the gate with me, I didn't really care. If I got 7th place, I just know he's getting last place. I'm going to beat this guy no matter what. So that just pissed me off.
There is I think it was one of the world championships. I've seen the video 1,000 times on YouTube where you guys are all lined up. Stu
Yeah.
seems like he's in lane 1 yelling at somebody, and you're looking over at Stu like, I just want to beat you. Like,
Well,
that was the moment I could really tell that there was something between the two of you that wasn't just about racing the 7 other dudes.
Right. I think that a lot of people have seen that video. It's crazy. It was in '82 in Vegas in December.
Yes.
It was the JAG ABA. They co-opted the World Championships. Unfortunately for Stu, he had lane 2. And the guy I was pissed off at was Anthony Sewell, and he was in lane 1. And I love Anthony. Anthony Sewell, I love that guy. He was the most crazy rival I ever had. But the point was, we raced Pro Open first, which was usually in the beginning of the program. And then we raced Pro last. Well, in the Pro Open, I was winning down the back straight on the inside. And Anthony pulled up next to me as we made the turn. He put his leg out, the old, "let me just put my leg on your number plate" deal,
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I was like, all right, well, you're not just going to go past me and win. So we're going to both get dirty right now. And I just turned to the right on the left-hand turn, and we crashed. And I was pissed, man. I'm on the ground, and I get up, and his bike is there, and I throw his bike more than I should have. The crowd is all like booing me. And I basically looked at the crowd and flipped them off, and I was pissed. And so my brake lever was broken. Long story short, went and fixed Brian and Brent Patterson helped me fix my brake lever. This is a guy that I'm going to race in the pro finals in about 30 minutes. He's helping me fix my brake lever. That's pretty unbelievable. Brent and Brian are two of the best guys ever. So
your Patterson brothers, father owned a company called Patterson Racing, another iconic brand. This is amazing. Go ahead.
So the thing is now I'm pissed and I'm like, all right, it's not like, I don't want to beat this guy. I'm going to run this dude into the infield. And obviously Stu is just going to have a bad day because he's like at the wrong place at the wrong time. And I'm in lane 3. So I don't know what Stu was arguing. He was arguing with the starter. And I really, truly don't have any idea what that was about. But I told myself when the gate drops on my 3rd crank, I'm getting white chalk on my tires. And that's that. And so that's pretty much what happened. It is what it is. So,
do you ever look back and think, man, had I controlled that a little better, you would have had better results? Not that come on, your career was ridiculous, right? But
for
never
sure.
A time you're like, man, I should have dialed that back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're going to have situations where that works, and that worked. And, but hey, man, if I was racing in Europe and did that, I would have got DQ'd. So
that's true.
Right?
Very true.
Yeah, there's always
the hills in Europe have lines all the way down to the bottom of the starting hill.
Right.
You can't cut across those at all. You have to stay in your lane, which gives everyone a fair shot to get out and get going. But,
right. Like there's no getting even on the track over there. If you want to get somebody, you got to find them out in the parking lot. Over in America, it was just, it's totally physical. But yeah, there's definitely moments as I look back where I say I should have had more control. Especially when you're like in a semi at a huge race and you're running in 3rd and you got somebody breathing down your neck and then you get anxious and make a stupid decision and now you're in 5th and you're not making it. Or, there's just countless scenarios, but that scenario, I don't know. I was just, there was a lot of energy. It was a super small track and there was massive people. The arena had lots of energy. And I know people today, they look back at that video and think, what a piece of crap that track was, but it was all we knew, man, And it was, whatever it was, $2,000 for first place. I don't care if we were riding on a go-kart track. I was like, I wanted to win some money and this is where we are. So it was cool. The energy in the building was great. It's amazing how people can be booing you out of the building and 40 minutes later be cheering you like, it's just unbelievable. Yeah.
It's quick. It's funny how quick the things will switch, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like it's amazing.
Real quick side note on the booing. I was in 85 at an NBL National at Charlotte Speedway. And it was in November. So it was actually the 86 season. And I don't understand what happened, but we had 3 mains and the whole BMX community was in the one section of the stands. And in the 3rd main, they would always read off your names, right? And this whole section of the crowd booed me so bad. I mean, like it was so loud. And I'm like, all right. And I was like tied with points with Leary and like King and that. And anyways, I won the last main and I went right over. I don't remember who was announcing, but I said, can I borrow the mic real quick, man? He's like, yeah, what's up? I said, let me see the mic. So I took the mic and I walked close to the crowd. I said, hey, you guys right over here? I just want to say thank you. Cause you know what, that boo, that's why I won that lap. And that's what ultimately had me win today. So thank you very much. Much appreciated. But the BMX is great. It's a great sport. Loved growing up in it. Patience, didn't have much of it, but.
Well, that being said, you were one of the first guys that I think Bob Osborne did an article with you back in the day, about studying the staring at the penny until it goes blank. And you were the first one that I read about that was actually taking a mental approach. And I had this conversation with Greg Romero too about the mental side of it. Yeah. But I remember you working on that from the get-go. And it sounds like that you would take bits and pieces of things that would motivate you at each race or use those as your influence, like the guys booing at you or Anthony wrecking you in the second turn.
Yeah.
Was that a deliberate kind of a thing, or were you just like, this is what I'm going after today?
I think it was like a deliberate situation because I would have some anxiety, I don't know who doesn't, but everybody has anxiety. Some people are really great at controlling it. I would have some anxiety and it would just get me a little bit too far ahead of myself. And so I was reading things. I followed bodybuilding a lot, and there was some guys, a guy named, I forget what his name was, Peter Siegel, I think his name was, and he was talking about imaging, focusing on things. So I basically thought, I'm going to take a penny, I put it on the table and sit at the desk, and I'll look at it until I can not see the table anymore, and not even, and all I see is a penny floating on the black. And I started doing that, and it was unbelievable because it just moves all the junk out of your mind. It really worked well. And so I took the penny and I put it underneath my crossbar pad to where you could see it under it. Right. It became the big joke, and people were like, "Oh, where's Hill? He's off in the corner staring at the penny." But you raced, you don't care what people think, man. If something's working, you're doing it. It doesn't matter what people think. I don't care. But it was as a way to refocus and not think about how many points you have, about your contracts ending in a few months, or you haven't, whatever the case was, is to turn off the incoming garbage that comes in. I know this. How many times have you been on the gate saying, don't hit the gate, man? You know what I mean? It's like, that's the perfect formula for a late gate start.
Exactly.
But how do you not think of that? It's crazy.
Totally. You inadvertently got yourself into being in the present moment.
You're right.
Because nothing else matters really when you get down to it. And what you said a second ago about not caring what other people think, that's another thing that BMX was really good for me. Because even to this day, I couldn't care less. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, even when I was at my best, people were still talking crap about me.
Right. They'll never stop.
No, it'll never. No matter how good you are or how much good you're doing, people are still going to dog you, and their words mean shit.
Man. Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Totally.
So let's move on to later on in your career. You'd gone through, you've won all these titles, you've done everything. You met John Purse, and you start to coach him.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that happen, and it was like, wow, that's a mini version of Greg right there. And John and I grew up together. I grew up racing with John, and we weren't in the same amateur classes, but man, I watched it. I saw it happen, and I was like, this dude's he's another animal.
So you've been run off the track many times by him, I'm sure.
Oh shit, dude. When I was in front of John, I knew I was lighting it up because John was always fast.
Oh, yeah,
John was always strong.
Absolutely.
And if he needed to move you out of the way, it means it's BMX. He'd move you out of the way.
Right.
And I knew that, and I respected that of him because I knew it wasn't anything personal. It was part of what we did, right?
Sure.
But yeah, he was an aggressive dude, like on and off the track, right?
I think I got along with him well because that dude would just soon just throw the bike down and start throwing blows. I mean, than even to talk or try to work it out. So, I mean, I literally met John at, I forget, we were at a national in Texas. You know how you finish your lap, you ride out of the building, and you got this cool down area.
Oh yeah.
Well, we were like at this race, and I don't know what moto of pros I was. Maybe we had 5 or 6 gates. I was towards the end. I come out of the building, and everyone in our class is like 100 yards down, and I roll down there, and I'm not kidding. Everybody, man, was lined up like in almost a big, huge U. And there's John Purse in the middle. And he's got his finger pointed at guys and goes, I'll kick your ass, and I'll kick your ass, and I'll kick your ass. And he pointed at everybody. Now, if you know John, you know he's not joking, man. Right? And nobody stepped up. Nobody stepped up to take the challenge from him. So after that, I went over to him and tried to talk to him. And he just said, you know what? F you, man. You're just part of the problem. You're just an old F and blah, blah, blah. I said, whatever, bro. So I run him off the track a few times. And then we were in, I don't care, dude. I didn't care. I'd be in 3rd place and he'd be 4th coming along this stupid line. I'd make a right turn and put him into a fence post and be like, yo, dude, how'd that work out for you, bro? But then he'd come back and win again. So the thing was, like, we're in El Paso and in the same situation. He's fighting not every day, every moto he's fighting with somebody. Dude has a chip the size of Texas on his shoulder at the time. So I talked to him. I went to talk to him. He told me all these things. Go F you. I said, listen, dude, you just need to chill out, bro. I'm not here to fight with you. We would have been fighting already. We started talking, and then we became friends. And then And then I started doing stuff with Redline, and they said, we have a budget, we need a pro, you need to find a pro. So I'm like, all right, I got the perfect guy. So I contact him, and still he's got the chip on his shoulder. I said, listen, my job is to promote the brand. I can help you. I know that you can win championships, but you'll never do it without help. And I'm not saying that because I'm not saying I'm the guy that can help you. I'm saying you're never going to realize you're too crazy. You're wound super tight. You need help. I'm here to help you.
He's totally crazy. I love the guy, but he's crazy as hell.
Well, yeah. And I'm like, I can get you a contract, but here's the deal. I'm not going to be responsible for bringing some crazy psycho dude into the program. So if you're going to be willing to accept my help, then we can do a lot of cool stuff. And you don't have to give me anything. I'm not telling you got to pay me, nothing. Just you win races. If I have clinics and we're on the road, you help me. You don't get paid for those because you're making money from Redline. So we did it, man. It worked out great. It was like a close to a 4.5 year deal. And in 4.5 years, he won 2 NBL titles. He won an APA title. He won a UCI title. He won a lot of races, and he did really good.
He did. I was on the receiving end of some of those ass kickings. Those races. Yeah, that dude's fast. He was ridiculously fast. It sounds like to me, there's a saying: you parent either the way that you want to be parented or the way you were parented.
Yeah,
and
man.
You were coaching John the way that you wanted to be coached. It sounded like.
Yes. I absolutely. I really never, and I love my parents, okay, but yeah, I could never raise my kids the way that I was raised, and I can never handle situations the way my dad handled situations, because so I always strive. And again, I'm not trying to be mean towards my parents. Here's the deal.
No, not at all.
If there was a conflict with a neighbor kid. So my sister Tanya, when she was like 17, she could like bench press a motorhome, dude. If you pissed her off, she could beat your ass. I don't care what anyone says. She could. So I was like 10 or 11, and I would get jumped by these kids on the way home, these 2 brothers and another kid. And it wasn't once in a while. It was basically every day, man. One day my dad says, okay, we're going to go down here and I'm going to talk to this guy's parents. While I'm talking to his dad, you're going to go and you're going to beat this kid's ass. And I'm like, you're 10 years old, dude, or 11 years old. You don't know what's right or what's wrong. We're thinking this is normal. So we go down there, guy has his kid out. My dad says, your kid, my kid in the front yard settling this. No more getting jumped after school every day. We're going to go right on the grass here. And if you reach in and try to stop this, then I'm going to punch you in your mouth. That's how my dad was. So I fight with this kid. We fight for like, I don't know how long, dude. And then we get home, my dad gives me a Coke. Good job, man, good job. But before the thing, my dad says, if you don't beat his ass, when we get home, your sister's going to beat your ass. That's pretty motivation. So I can't parent that way. I try hard not to. You try to find your own way. And, I feel like doing that with John. Sure, there was a point where if somebody keeps hitting him and knocking him down, it's like, dude, you need to run this guy off the track and you need to make a statement. And if it means you didn't win today, then you didn't win today, because you need to end this. This just can't go on all year long. You got to, But anyway, John was a good, he would, I'm going to put it this way. There's nobody like Randy Stumphauser in terms of doing what you were asked to do. But John was pretty good. But John would be at races and he'd be like tired. I'm like, what's up? And he goes, well, and you know this, you know him, so you'll know. Well, last night at about 11 o'clock, I was doing my sprints. And then after that, I went, whoa, at 11 o'clock at night, you're sprinting out in the street, dude? Yeah, bro, I was doing my sprints at 11 o'clock at night. And I told you got to get to bed by 10 o'clock every night, dude. You're not going. Anyways, he never did exactly what he was told. He did my stuff, and then he added his stuff. But the reason he won so much is because when we were at races, I could get into his dome and I could influence him. So
we're in Reno, Nevada, going back to the hotel on Saturday.
Oh yeah.
He's riding his bike back with his helmet on.
Oh yeah.
And his goggles on.
Yep.
And gets in the elevator, same kit, didn't take anything off. And I think it was the next day, he said, Greg told me if I rode back to the hotel and didn't take my stuff off, I'd win the next day. The dude won on Sunday.
Right. You only seen part of it. Dude, check this out. he had a he, he had a shitty
I hate
day.
that. I don't want this to be the John Person interview because I'm going to do one of these
No, but
with
it's
him. But
cool.
man, this
It's
is
all
the
good.
part of your
But
story. I love this.
but it's just like nobody would do this but a redneck. I told him he did really bad on Saturday. So I said, listen, keep your stuff on. We're going to get to the hotel. I think it was at the Hilton or whatever in Reno.
Yeah,
You know, when
yeah,
you park, you're like a mile from, even when you park in the parking lot, you're like so far from the hotel. So I said, you're going to get out of you're going to leave all your stuff on. You're going to drive back to the hotel, goggles, everything. Okay.
Oh, that's right. He wasn't riding. He was in the car. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And when you get out, you're going to walk into the front door of the casino. You're going to walk straight over to the blackjack table and you're going to play a hand with all your stuff on. And if you do that, you're going to win tomorrow. And so sure enough, we get in there. He's at a table with all his stuff on, dude, like he's ready to race his main, and he's playing poker or 21. Yeah, blackjack. And anyway, what was cool is that Tony Donaldson was there for the weekend to do photos for ads and stuff. So they got photos of that. And dude, it's the same thing. Like, I mean, in 97 in Canada for the Worlds, you know, a couple of days before, I said, listen, we're going to go sightseeing. We're going to look at some stuff. We found this big bridge and, you know, it had bungee jumping. And I said, bro, if you do this, you're going to win on Sunday. I guarantee it, dude. I know you'll win on Sunday if you do this. Anyways, he was all set up and he had the bungee thing on his ankle. And for 45 minutes, he was crapping himself.
No
And
way.
apparently you don't want to win. Apparently you just don't like winning. And anyways, finally he jumped. And on Sunday, he came out of the last turn in second behind Romero with a 47.16 on his bike. And he blew past him and won. And I'm like, see, bro, I told you, dude. So yeah, it was mind games with him. It was cool. It was really fun.
That was a wild weekend for so many reasons. But that's even more incredible hearing that story, because Greg coming out of the last turn, I was like, Romero's about to win. And you could see John just
lengths in front.
You could see him catching him. You could see him motoring. I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? Hit that jump, boom.
Right.
Totally different. I was like,
dude, check this out, dude. When practice happened and he's got his 44 on his bike, he does one lap and he's by the fence. You know, I stay by the staging area so that when he passes me, I'm like, dude, we need to change your gear. Put a 45 on. Put a 45 on. Did another lap. Dude, put a 46 on. No way. Listen to me. Put a 46 on. He did another lap. I said, put a 47 on. There's no way I'm not putting a 47 on. I said, I'm done. We're not listening to coach. So I'm out. Good luck. All right. Put the damn thing on. Put a 47 on his bike. Freaking smoked everybody. It was excellent.
Everyone had to go up gears on that. I normally ran a 43, 44. I ran a 45 there, and that was big for me. And I was like, that's enough.
Yeah, that was still super long. But yeah, he was just all mental, you know, crazy.
Right. So let's move forward. You're now, you know, obviously you did GHP. You had your own bike company at one point. I think that's a pretty well-versed story. But now you're doing something totally different outside of BMX. I know you tried to stay in it for a little while, still coaching and training.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you still do, but you've ran out of it completely.
Yeah, totally. 100%. No, I'm out for like 3.5 years, I think, or so.
It's like a breath of fresh air, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. I love it. I love the sport, but dude, I love not being in it. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big world. There's so much out there that's available that you can also.
You're missing out on it when you're trying to stay in something where the season has come and gone for you and you got to get out of it. And I was pretty stuck in quicksand for a lot of time in it. So
yeah, I think a lot of us, when we retire, we've all tried to stick around for some way, and it works for some people for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's some people that are in it and they're doing great, but it's certainly not for everybody.
Yeah,
you know, and I think that's the hard part, even to swallow that pill. You're like, I've got so much to share and to offer. Why won't you listen to me?
Yeah.
But
yeah, who knows? Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy.
Totally.
So let's talk about what was the influence in starting your own epoxy surface company. I mean, you were super successful at that as well. I mean, we can tie this back to your career in BMX to how successful you are now.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about floor coatings or any of that. And then I forget what the year it was, towards like 99, maybe 2000. I was doing this clinic at Whittier. This is during Let's Hang On to BMX. I'm doing a clinic and there's like 4 people, you know, and 3-hour deal. So when they get done, this guy comes over, big tall dude named Dino, and 2 of his kids were in it. And he goes, hey, let me ask you, what do you charge for private lessons? And I said, usually $100. And so he hands me $200 bills. And I said, dude, you just paid for the clinic a while ago. He goes, no, you're not. You just gave my kids a private lesson, man, and you did a great job. So here's a couple $100. So we became buddies, and he started coming to my house, and I would train his kids private lessons. And so, well, he was in coatings. He did, epoxy and all this stuff. And at one point he says, hey, if you want to come, I was trying to get out of BMX, and he said, if you want to come work for us, I can't give you much. I can only give you $10 an hour, but you'll learn the business. You'll learn everything you need to learn. I'll make sure you learn it all. And so I went to work for him, and worked for a few other companies, did epoxy for a couple of years. And then like an idiot, I circled back into BMX, and, I don't know, I could tell my wife, I'm like, man, I just am so stubborn. I should have got out of it years ago. If I would have known I could have done what I'm doing now in epoxy, if I had started this 15 years ago, it would have been like, wow, but yeah, so I already had the knowledge and of epoxy and of concrete restoration, all that stuff. It's crazy. So like when I decided to get out of BMX, I was working for a company called Remix. Okay. And I was at a national in Lemoore, and it was Sunday, and it was like 11:30, and the race was going to be over by 1:00. It was just like, here we are on the West Coast, and there's like 160 motos at a national where I've been to, where there's been 400 motos. And this guy that I know named Jim Garrett, he comes and starts talking to me, and he's a roofing contractor. I know him from being at the track and this and that. We never hung out, but I was acquaintances. So we start talking. And after 10 minutes, he goes, hey, let's take a walk, man. So we walk like 15, 20 feet, 30 feet away. And he says, can I ask you something? I'm like, yeah, what's up? He goes, what the hell are you doing here? Because what happened was he started talking about roofing, and then he got into coating and waterproofing. And I started like telling him all this stuff. And he's like, you know this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. So he started picking my brain. I answered all his questions. He's like, take a walk. So we walked, and he goes, he said it, he didn't say it exactly this, but he said, what the hell are you doing here, man? Why don't you start doing this and work under my license, and I'll flip you jobs. And so that I just did it. I decided that's it. I'm going to do this. And I came home, and I basically got my information to get into the school to get my contractor's license, and had a few other people I knew in contracting. Charlie Williams is a contractor. He's a general contractor, and he's a painting contractor. So
really,
connected with him. So he was flipping me jobs, and Jim was flipping me jobs, and I would get my own. I went on a Facebook Marketplace, and that was like 3 years ago. And now here I am doing my own thing. So it's cool.
Are you still doing it by yourself, or do you have employees underneath you that do it as well?
I just do it by myself, man, because it's a weird situation. A lot of times people are like, hey man, you need to get a few guys and get some vehicles. And I'm like, the thing is this, I'm doing it by myself. I've tried to have people help me. It's tough to find someone that cares about the job as much as you do. It's tough to find someone that isn't working like just they need their hours. If I wanted somebody that was good enough to where I could leave the job site, I got to pay them more than I could afford to pay them. And I was getting frustrated. And this guy that I know who works for a company that I bought material from, he says, you need to do these jobs on your own, man. He goes, I did it for years by myself. So I did a job by myself, and I was like, whoa, okay. It wasn't the most enjoyable experience, because quite frankly, I had hand grinders. So I'm on my hands and knees. Oh my God, for like 4 hours grinding a floor. And then I would have to do every step. There's nobody there to hand you anything. So ultimately that got into getting an upright walk behind grinder, take the little paintbrush and duct tape a paint stick onto it. So like, how can I not come home and feel like my back is going to get blown out? Like, what's the easiest way to get this done? So now I do every job. I did a 3-car garage yesterday. It was a huge garage. I did it by myself. I started at 7:30 and finished at 4:30. Done. And the point, the tricky part is, and business, I'm sure you understand. you're at a certain level by yourself, doing well. I'm doing way better than I was doing in BMX. But if you want to take the next jump up, I got to do like 70% more business, because now
Right.
I gotta have employees.
Mhm.
So if I'm grossing, I don't know, I'm just throwing numbers out there. If I'm grossing 300,000 or 400,000 on my own, and I want to make more money than that, now I got to gross probably 1 million.
Right.
And that step will be the step that gets me working 5, 6 days a week. That'll get me at 3 in the morning thinking, do we have enough material for this? Is Joe going to do a good job today? Because I can't be there with him. And I don't want that, man. I don't want it. I just
Right.
don't want it. If somebody said, look, well, I had a guy offer me a job, a company called Red Rhino in LA, and we were on the phone. And he said, look, I've seen your work and I've heard about you, and I'd like you to come work for me. And I'm like, well, what do you got? He goes, well, we got like 3 guys right now making 250 to 270 a year. So you could fit right into that mold. I said, what do I have to trade for that? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, what, excuse me, what do I got to give you for that? How much time? He says, well, the guys that are doing that are working like 60, 70 hours a week.
Oh.
I said, let me tell you something. And I'm being honest, and I appreciate you calling me. But if you were going to give me $1 million cash every year, I would never do 70 hours a week, ever. He's like, are you kidding me? I said, no, I'm not. I got like, 5 grandkids, and I got a wife who I like being around. Why would I want to be gone 60, 70 hours a week for money that I don't have time to spend? No, thank you. So he was like, wow, okay. So I do what I do. I do 2 jobs a week, 3 jobs a week, have time to do things at home, have time for, hey, can you watch, our grandson Jackson? Yeah, no problem. It's great. I wouldn't trade it. I think money for me is probably 4th or 5th down the line.
Hmm.
If we have what we need, and we have a little extra, and we have that time, which is invaluable, then that's all that matters to me. And then you can take jobs that you want to take, and certain jobs. A good buddy of mine, he's a contractor, been for a long time. And when I first started, he says, you need to learn one thing in this business. And I'm like, what's that? He goes, you need to learn how to say no. Don't take a job just to make money. Just do what you know how to do and say no to the stuff you don't, and keep it simple. So that's kind of what I did.
Dude, I love it. Time is our most precious commodity, hands down.
Yeah, for sure. You can't make it. You can't get more of it.
Right. Hmm.
So why work? Why work yourself to death, and to have a bunch, of what? You're
Right.
married to your career,
Right. And like what you just said, I like to be home. Like I'm watching
Yeah.
my son grow and he's already
Yeah.
6. And I'm like, shh, dude, like
Yeah.
this is going so fast. Like
It's too
so
fast and you
fast.
can't recover it,
No, you'll never get it back. You'll never get it
No,
back.
not even.
Um,
So,
there's one thing that you wish you would have done in your BMX career before I let you go. What do you think that would have been?
um, I don't know, man. I mean, if you get asked that question earlier on in life, I could come up with a huge long list, but it's kind of like saying, hey, remember that time that, life just took a dump on you? What would you have done differently to make that not happen? And I would say, I would have just smiled more while I was getting dumped on, and try to look for the silver lining in it, because without those experiences, you cannot grow. So I think it would be unfair for me to say, well, I wish I would have done this, and I wish I would have done that. And I just have to leave it be, man. It happened for a reason. It is what it is. I have a wonderful memory of my career. You know, could I have done a few things differently? Of course. Could I have done something more to help me win a few more races? Of course I could have. But who cares? Like, who gives a shit? I don't care. Like, people, I'm not tied to it. I'm not going to, you could walk around my house right now. You would never know I raced BMX. I love it. I don't live it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't really want to change anything, um, about what happened. Just try to learn from it and try to make better decisions, and have more knowledge and experience moving forward. Let those experiences serve the now and the future, you know?
Well, I can tell by the work ethic you had back then was obviously something that we all aspired to do as well. We saw how hard you worked, and I know for me especially, like as hard as he's training and working, I want to be like that, and I know what it takes because I saw that, and I can see that that's carried over into your post racing career as well. So, you know, it all happened for a reason, right?
It's all good. Yeah, it's a journey, you know, and the journey happens, the experiences happen. You got to look at them and you got to say, what is the learning in this? I never know anybody who won and learned anything, you know? It's like, I lost, this didn't go right. What do you do to make this not happen next time? How are we learning here? You know, because when something goes right, you don't have a feeling. I know for me, when something goes right, it's like, and you don't have to overcome anything. It's real easy to just really not really, it doesn't feel the same as when something kind of didn't go right and you worked through it and made it right. And now you're like, wow, okay, that's cool. I learned from that, you know?
Yeah, well, there's nothing to think about. Some of my best laps that I won, I can't remember them because I was on autopilot. And I was just like, let's just go do it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. For sure.
So, Greg, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me so much.
An honor and a pleasure to have you. I love hearing those stories behind the story. I mean,
yeah,
it's obviously it's well documented how great you were as an athlete. But it's nice to hear the steps and some of the things that got you there. Those influences are huge, and we have them all the time. And it's nice to hear yours, and I appreciate you sharing them.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and be good and be safe. And
we'll catch you. You as well. You guys like what you're seeing here, please make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, subscribe there as well. Have a great day. Stay safe. Greg, thank you so much. I will chat with you soon, buddy.
All right, buddy. You too, man. Take care. Bye-bye.